Hi there. I'm going to talk about the ipvxyZ system, which is gradually coming to fruition as I process the whole network of the universal IPv location um, network um, that basically is intended to reach as many areas of the universe as possible, limiting each household to one IP address and then configuring the whole household with local IPv6 addresses for that location, planet, or moon, if you like. So IPvXYZ with a capital Z is designed to equip um, the future dimensions of any space program that should require accurate location configuration um, with a series of IP addresses that can basically sky's the limit. There's no limit to the amount of addresses we can configure with it. However, I think because the universe is so vast, it would be arrogant to say that we could have an IP address for every single individual um, network or setup or whatever it may be that they're using at that location. Therefore, the single IP address, IPvXYZ address, would be given to each location, possibly each town, but then moving in slightly more with each location, each household, or each place of business, or each operation, perhaps that requires an IP address. IPvXYZ requires all its addresses to be static. Every single address is static; they do not change. This is because it has to be configured that way because of the vast array of addresses that we're trying to configure, which possibly the vast majority haven't been configured yet in the process of setting up the system to reach, say, other tribes of human beings who have already ventured out into the universe, or possibly any um, other being other than human being in the system. There's a potential to reach all these people and to reconfigure from the Earth, from our perspective, using our IP system, so that the Earth can contact and locate these directions, these locations. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that the people using these communication systems in the universe will be able to configure IPv XYZs or have done already. However, there is a vast expanse of the universe that will have been conducted through the process of the creation of the Moses platform when it comes, which means that during the setup and the design of this process, using the CADSA method, finding out where we got to when we started to configure the IPvXYZ addresses, they will have realized and acknowledged the system coming through, and in many places within the universe, this will have already been incorporated through various secret space programs or other such programs from a later date as we sent out the tribes of the universe and receive the tribes of the universe to eighth heaven and the location where eighth and seventh heaven are or will be. So the way the IPvXYZ addresses work are they are alphanumeric, and they operate on a 0 to 9 configuration with uppercase and lowercase alphabet options. So we have A to Z lowercase and A to Z uppercase. There is also a configuration in the system that means that each section of the IPvXYZ address are, say, a maximum of at least 10, if not 20, um, characters per address per section within the address, and also each section of the each address um, is not limited. So there could be, say, 20 or 30 sections to a really distant or obscure location which isn't accessed very often, isn't necessary to the central purpose of the whole program. So if you look at the whole IPv range, like I said, potentially, although it'd be arrogant to say that we could do an IPv6 style system, an Internet of Things system within the universe, I think that is taking it too far. And to avoid complications, we are limiting it to one ipvxyz address per household, configuring each part of the system, each thing in the system to an IPv6 style system within the local planetary system or local makeup of that location. I did say briefly that the ipvxyz system could be related to entire cities and have one, say, city or one area of the planet that it's on having a single IPvXYZ address. If the multitude of the universe proves that we can only afford to have one IPvXYZ location at each city. Think of these cities, like some of them are going to be mega cities with as many people living in them as there are on this planet, if you think about it. So potentially we could have one IPvXYZ address in each city and then configure IPv6 and IPv4 addresses to array the system from the locality. However, at the moment in the locality of our solar system and the moon and our planets, our solar system, and possibly reaching the nearest stars and, with planets or with habitable areas within the cosmos, say in our locality, I'm configuring it to one IPvXYZ address per household, and this can then, like I said, be configured as needs to be from then on. So, what are the benefits of having an IPvXYZ address? Firstly, the benefits are that it's much easier for the protocol to work on the Earth and therefore configure IP addresses that match up to the universal program as they get reattributed and redefined. Another thing is that the IPvXYZ, like I said before, is always going to be static on the system until that address no longer exists. It's because there's much less corruption in the universe, and people are going to be less likely to hack into their systems for criminal reasons. Primarily because we know the Earth is a place. It's the human territory. There's great things about it, and there's appalling things about it. And until we get that sorted out and completed correctly, IPvXYZ addresses are actually being used to sniff out serious crime and fraud and that sort of thing in our location, and at the same time as provide location areas for key strategic intelligence points on the planet, plus a few configurations for the space programs and other things that mean that we're going to get off-world access, potentially via moon bases and other things, Mars bases, and whatever else is in the pipeline or has already been put there, that we don't yet talk about publicly. So that's basically how the IPvXyZ process is going to work. It's going to be a shared thing. And the best thing is, it'll be like a password. You'll be able to remember it, and you'll be able to use it also to access your system from a different location. So if you have the benefit, I'm sure you've got your IP address, you've got your server, you set up things using an IPv4 address and all that sort of thing. But with an IPvXyZ address, there'll be a common system in place to access your location, with the encryption required, potentially to ensure that it's your own, or using the POWI system so that no one else can access it except for the person who that property belongs to. That's probably how the security is going to work ultimately using the POWI system. But on Earth, obviously, at the moment, we're going to go through various encryption methods to make sure that the right people, um, get access to the intelligence that they require. Obviously, it's like any IP address. You still got the security on the routers and the internet and the Wi-Fi, so that it's not always that easy, even if you have someone's IP address, to hack into the system if they've got the correct set up on their system to ensure security is at a premium. So that's basically how the system is going to work. We're going to co-align it with POWI from the ipvxyZ system. We will find that we'll get new trends and patterns in the IPv4 system and how the IPv6 system is allocated, but that's probably already been in place, like I said, through the CADSA method, so we're happy with that. That's going fine. But then as we start to map out the Earth with ipvxyZ system, as I've been mainly using ipvxyZ to map the Earth out for one reason or the other, I mainly find that the configurations so far haven't altered too much in the data that I'm receiving. However, it's possible that there may be some changes necessary to ensure that the mapping is correct, and some adjustments. The ipvxyZ I'm pretty much writing myself, so that system should map out naturally as enough addresses get placed in strategic locations, which is why obviously on Earth we're rather dealing with one side or the other, whereas in the universe we're, if we need essentially to access something, because vehicles also may need their own addresses as well, so they will also have to be configured. Starships on the move and things like that will need it'll facilitate the access to these locations rather than hugely complex radio systems or satellite systems to access vehicles on the move from Earth to Mars or other planets in the solar system. We will be able to have one ipvxyZ address and be able to link to it continue, permanently. So we'll always, we'll be able to keep track of it, and also with the POWI network and the data aura associated with the ipvxyZ, we will actually be able to maintain the health and check the systems, and any tweaks or changes that need to be done at the last minute when a difficult maneuver takes place, something like that. We may have interface modules that are able to pass information that show us what we need to do at the last minute, or what we need to do if there needs to be an adjustment because of an imbalance in the system or all that sort of thing. This is all, it's sensitive, like I said, it's all sensitive information. It works in a sensitive format, and the interfaces and networks and communications infrastructure to make sure that this is realized successfully. So that's a bit about the ipvxyZ system. Yeah, it goes hand in hand with POWI. You can watch my POWI video on SpaceTM or mosras.uk. But that is mainly a brief rundown on IP systems that are going to be universal and more definitive, I suppose, than the general IP addresses that are in the system at the moment. It's teething problems. If we can have one IP system that would do everything, that'd be great. Also, I'll just say how they're punctuated. They're divided by a dot, not a colon. There's a dot in between them. Each section, there can be a minimum of 2 sections and a maximum of, the sky's the limit. And each section can be potentially as many characters as required, but say to start off with, to keep it reasonable. Otherwise, we're going to have pages and pages of addresses. It never needs to get that far, and I don't think it ever will need to get that far with the myriad of varieties we're going to have with a 10, 10, 10, 10 format. Even that will be enough. But again, that's pretty excessive. For the local addresses, maybe I'll only be using 10 characters total, and that's enough. So anyway, have a think about that and get back to me. Tell me what you think. It'd be good to hear your opinions. Okay, thank you very much.